Good. Good to almost see you. Hi. I see the letter of your name, the V.
Yes,
You got
good
kiddos floating
to
around you?
see you. I do. Sick kiddos at that.
I got my daughter coming in about 2 weeks, God willing.
Yay, exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, shall I get started, Cameron?
Yeah.
Okay,
We
great.
one that'll be a little late, but that's okay.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's realtor time, Mexican minute,
I was about to say,
right?
it's a realtor.
It's okay. It's all good. Yeah, living in Mexico for you learn that people, especially down there, boy, they are not on time. They say the contractor says I'll be there at 2, he'll be there at 6.
Mary is on the call. Her husband just moved here from Mexico.
From Mexico? Oh, whereabouts?
Sure. They'll answer that. I think close to Mexico City. I forgot where she's from.
Mary moved from
No,
Mexico.
Cancun.
Oh, from Cancun. Oh, way down there.
Yeah.
Way down there. Wow. How long were you living there, Mary?
6 years, but I
Wow,
concur.
that's a long
It's always
time. I was
like,
down in Vallarta for about a year.
nice.
And did you enjoy your time down there?
Oh yeah, it was great while it lasted. But it's true, people are on like a whole different world down there. Like, oh yeah, I'm on my way, and then
I like
they
it,
haven't even left
right?
their house. Like, okay.
Yeah. I tell you what, one of the first things I noticed about living in Mexico is that I was no longer ever upset at all in traffic because there wasn't much. And it's
Yeah.
just, again, it's a different vibe down there. So,
Yeah, they forced me to be patient. That's for sure.
okay, so I'll go ahead and get started, everybody. We're about 10 after 10 here. So for those of you I have not met, I know some folks on the call, some folks in the room here. Obviously, my name is Nicholas Ellsworth. I work with Fidelity National Title. I've been doing this I've been in title and escrow since I was 18 years old. I'll be 40 in July, so about 22 years I've been doing this, with the exception of my year in Mexico. And I got in the business typing prelims, right? If anybody's closed an escrow, you've seen a preliminary title reports. It was a great way to get into the business at 18. I didn't even know what a title company was, right? From there, went into customer service. And customer service for title companies is where all the behind the scenes property research, farming, where all the hard stuff takes place. When somebody can't find an answer to something, they call to the title plant, which is where our customer service department is located. And that was in Pleasanton. Grew up in Vacaville, and then from about the age of 19 or 20 until about 34 years old, I worked in the San Mateo, San Francisco marketplace, doing sales in title and escrow. So I've been with Fidelity for a little over 3 years now. And here in the greater Sacramento region, Roseville and the surrounding areas, about the same. Moved out here a little over 3 years ago. So I'm still learning some of the areas, even though growing up in Vacaville, close to Sacramento, but there's still so much to learn about Placer County, Sacramento, and everything. So that's about it for me. Like I said, I got a baby on the way. My first. We're having the baby in Toronto. We're making it as difficult as possible for me. I married a Canadian, and long story short, she hasn't immigrated yet. So we're having the baby abroad, and we'll be back next month in July. Right? Yeah, the most difficult way to have it. So I have 2 German Shepherds at home with my other 2 babies. You have a Shepherd too, don't you, Cameron?
No.
You have a Shepherd? Why did I think you had a Shepherd?
I have two dogs. One kind of looks like a shepherd.
Okay. That could be it. Time for number 3. I know, right? Choose a handful. So again, guys, so farming is my specialty. I've been doing this presentation for the better part of 15 plus years, and it has evolved over time, right? I change it as the market changes, as technology improves. And I'm going to share with you a handful of slides in the beginning. Might seem very basic, but just with anything, the basics, the fundamentals are so important. These basics that I'm going to go over are the chief cause of failure in farming, right? So has anybody done any farming? I know Khaled's done some. Anybody else? Some? Okay.
I started, but not.
What's your name?
Follow through. I'm Chanel.
Chanel. Hi, Chanel. I'm Nick. Good to meet you. So you started but didn't follow through, you said? Okay. On the honor system. I like it. The honor system. I know Vivi. Vivi, have you done some farming?
Yeah. It does. I need to keep going though, right? Because it's not short term, so I have to keep at it.
It's not short term. Can it be short term? Yeah. I'll give you an example. I am working with a realtor. We haven't done any escrows together. She works at Nick Sadek's office, and she came to me and said, Nick, I met a buyer at an open house, high-end buyer. We're talking like 3 million and up, but they have very specific needs, and there's nothing on the market for what they want. So we met, And this is nothing new. And again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I always like to share success stories. Again, this is 2 weeks ago. And I said, okay, what are your buyer needs? We sat down and we went, and she went and put together a buyer letter, just alerting the homeowners, hey, I have a serious qualified buyer here who wants to buy a home in your neighborhood and has the budget of X, right? 3 million, 4 million. And so she opened up a couple escrows a few weeks ago, and I saw them come in, and we see a lot of escrows come in, and I saw her open house notification, her coming soon. And I saw it was a fat house for like 2.99. I'm going, and it was in that same neighborhood where she was farming. And I sent her a private message on Facebook or Instagram. I said, congratulations on the listing. She texted me, picked up the phone. And she said, by the way, I want you to know I got this listing from the buyer letters I sent out. Right. So farming is long-term, but I've seen multiple, uncountable short-term success stories. 3 mailers and a listing. I've seen it happen countless times, right? Uncountable. Is that a word? I said that a few minutes ago. Uncountable. Countless is the better word. Okay. So again, farming is a long-term investment. Your future self will thank you for it. Tom Ferry right now, right? One of the biggest real estate coaches out there. He is preaching right now to the agents that he coaches. You need to front load your marketing now. Don't wait until the market heats up again in 12 months or 24, whenever that is. Do it now. That way, when things do take off, you're not starting from ground zero when you should have started a year ago, right? So start now, and you don't have to break the piggy bank to do it. Everybody's budget, whether it be your financial budget, your time, budgeting your time, right? How much time can you invest into it? That's going to be different for everybody. So you don't have to bite off and 1,000 homes and go out and get in over your head, right? So we'll start from the beginning. My competitors are catching on to this. This is the first slide of my farming presentation. I recently heard one of my competitors quote this. I'm like, I know exactly where you got that from, because I like to share this as the first part of the slide. I know, Vivi, you've probably seen this presentation before, Khaled, but FARM is an acronym. I've never met a realtor or a title rep that knew that FARM was an acronym and knew what it stood for. And I'm not just sharing this with you for random trivia, so when you're playing a game, in a couple of years, you know the answer. I like to share it because the R in farm is, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of the acronym, important components of farming. So anybody know what it stands for? Anybody remember what it stands for? The M is marketing. Now you got 3 letters. We got it. So the first word is focal. Focal area. We got it. Focal area. Remember, the R is important. That's a great guess. I get that one a lot. Focal area something marketing.
Relocation.
Viviana, Mary, anybody else on the call? Chanel, what's our R? Focal. It's a great guess.
Relationship.
We'll go 10 seconds. I don't want to spend too much time. So the R is so important. So focal area research marketing. Right? Yeah, and the research is the important part. I see a lot of realtors. I'll meet with realtors who've been farming for a few years and say, it doesn't work. I don't have anything. I'm like, well, let's sit down and talk about what you're doing. And I'll learn. Most of the time, I'll ask an agent, have you qualified your farm? They go, what? I'm like, have you analyzed the farm? Have you thrown it up against the wall, against other areas to see how it ranks in terms of not just turnover? A lot of title reps, it's a common phrase, hey, let's find an area that has good turnover. Great. What they're doing is they're going back and looking at the last 12 months. And they say, oh, this area is, in this market, 4% is great. This area has 4% turnover. And my argument is just because the last 12 months were good, that doesn't tell us anything. It tells us that last year was good. Great. What about next year? All right. The best way to predict the future is by looking at the past, right? So I don't go 12 months back. We go 60 months back. I want to look at 60 months of data, month over month, year over year, and find an area that is producing listings every single month, right? You'll be surprised. I just did it yesterday with an agent in Davis. There's an area that looked good on the surface, and she knew the area well. She goes, that has to be a fluke. 12-month snapshot was great. We went back 5 years, and there were multiple 4-month gaps with no sales, 4 months, right? So those are the areas we want to avoid. If we can send you to an area that has consistent production for 60 months straight, we should feel pretty confident that there's going to be more down the road, right? It's not just going to fall off all of a sudden, right? 5 years in a row is pretty consistent. So that's the acronym FARM. We'll move along here. After these next 3 slides, I'm going to open up our farming system, show you what it's capable of. There's multiple farming systems out there. I'm just going to show you our most complete one-stop shop farming program today. And this is interactive, you guys, interactive presentation. Anybody on Zoom, anybody in the room, if you have a question, comment, just interrupt me and we'll go from there. So road rules for farming. Anybody remember that TV show on MTV, Road Rules? You guys remember that? Yeah, I remember Real World Road. Yeah, Road Rules, all those shows. Like, right, I was a 80s baby, child of the 90s, so I grew up watching that stuff. It's probably why I like to go to beaches now from watching those spring break MTV shows, right? TRL, right? So road rules. We're not talking about MTV. We're talking about the road rules for farming, and we kind of just touched on this. Make your farm manageable. And what's manageable for, it's David, right?
Yeah.
What's manageable for David might not be manageable for Cameron, or vice versa, right? Everybody's going to be different. So ask yourself, because the most successful agents I've ever seen with farming, come on in. Good morning. It's all good. This is the sorry free zone.
This is Paola. She's a new agent.
Paola,
Join her.
¿hablas español?
Sí.
Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Igualmente. Okay, Viviana, was my Spanish okay? Mary? Okay, so moving right along. So make your farm manageable. That's number one. An agent I sat down with a couple days ago, he's only starting with 200 homes, right? That's on the lower end, because he has kids and single dad and doesn't have the time to go out there and canvass a neighborhood of 1,000 homes. But before Paola walked in, I was starting to share that the most successful agents that I see are the ones that pair their mailers with canvassing and leaving something on the doorstep, leaving a flyer on the doorstep. If you're on a tight budget and you can't afford to pay the U.S. Postal Service a ton of money to send out your mailers, get out there on foot when it's not 110 and drop them off at the front door. I tell you what, when I get I'm in real estate, right? Title. When I get a flyer on my door, probably because I'm in the business, but I'm locked in. Like, okay, who's dropping up something today? But so get out there on foot, right? Don't be afraid. Door knocking. The more that I've done this, the more that I've learned in speaking with successful agents, that door knocking slows them down. There's an agent in Davis, Jeremy Higgins, great guy, top producer. He actually did a test. He spent 3 hours door knocking, 3 hours canvassing, leaving on the doorstep over 12 months. I think he said he got 6 listings in 12 months, and 3 came from door knocking, 3 came from canvassing. So it was balanced, right? There was nothing that indicated to him that one was better than the other. Me personally, I'm a numbers guy. I want to hit as many homes as possible as I can. Right. Be consistent. I think all of us kind of touched on that in the beginning when I asked who's done farming before, right? I mean, that's the key to anything, whether it be going to the gym, whether it be learning how to play the piano, whether it be farming, if you want to be successful at anything, right? Little contributions over time, little efforts over time, or big efforts over time create the big things, right? I think we all know that. So be consistent. It sounds so basic, guys, as I said in the beginning, but gosh, that's why people fail. Because they get a listing or a couple of buyers and everything else takes a back seat. So manage your time, once you finalize your farm, we'll talk more about it, and have the next 12 months decided, set up. This is what I'm doing for the next 12 months. That way you don't have to worry about it every single month. It's done, it's ready to go, on to the next thing. Lastly here, very important, follow up with another form of contact, right? There was a study done at a university level that proved, among other things in the study, it proved that if you follow up your initial marketing effort with a different form of contact, your marketing effort becomes 5 times more effective. That's huge. I didn't make that up, right? That came from the Department of Marketing. What was that?
Can you give an example? What do you mean?
Absolutely. I was going there next. You're reading my mind. So follow up with a different form of contact. So let's say you send out a stuff envelopes with a QR code and you send them out in the mail, right? The next thing you do, what would be a different form of contact, David?
Knock on those doors.
Knock on the door or leave something on the doorstep. Now you've done a different form of contacting them. Our systems can pull email addresses. Send them an email. Another success story. There's a Dream Real Estate. They're out of Elk Grove. They had the owners of the company listed their personal property and opened it with us about a month ago. It went live a couple of weeks ago. Prior to it going live, the husband and wife team sat down with me and put together a mailer for the neighborhood. And I said, "What's your goal?" They said, "Well, we want to get more business, get more listings, right?" So they sent out just coming soon, just listed, that sort of stuff. But they paid for the email addresses, 7 cents for an email, $7 for 100. And it went into contract. This is a cool success story. Went into contract, and I did a presentation for them about 10 days ago, and via Zoom. And the husband and wife interrupted me. They said, "Hey, Nick, you know our listing went into contract, right?" Because I was talking about email addresses and farming. I said, "Yeah, yeah." They said, "Do you know how we got the buyer?" I said, "No, nobody's told me." They said, "Well, those email addresses we purchased, we sent out a few emails announcing they're coming soon, and a homeowner within the neighborhood reached out to us and said, 'We want your house,' ended up buying their home." Right? So everybody thinks they're going to get more listings, but you just never know unless you try. You never know what you're going to get. Right? So, I mean, that was 1 or 2 emails they sent out. Right? So, so that's a different form of contact. You can mail, you can email, you can leave something at the doorstep, phone numbers, you can call them. I'm not big on that. Some people swear by it. What else would there be? Facebook contact. Right? There's a lot of different forms of contact out there. So moving on to the next slide, identify your niche or niche, however way you want to pronounce it. What is it that you want to accomplish? I mean, write this stuff down. What is it that you're trying to do? Do you want to become known as the neighborhood specialist, right? The king or queen of Sun City, whatever it is. Do you want to work with target investors? Maybe you've done some flips yourself. Maybe you feel confident and have the knowledge and experience to where you want to work with investors because you have a knack in that. This is one of my favorites, life event specialist. I think this is one of the most overlooked and often abandoned farm out there because people don't see results in the first 3 months. Right? So what's a life event? Somebody's filed for a divorce. We'll talk about that. Somebody's passed away. You got to be careful with that, though. The affidavit of death forms. Has anybody ever done that or heard of it? Heard of it? Yeah. So affidavit of death is recorded when somebody dies, right? It's attached to the chain of title to the property. But here's the kicker. Here's where a lot of title reps make mistakes and realtors make mistakes is if somebody dies in 2010, they have to get a death certificate, right? They have to get an official death certificate, but they do not have to record an affidavit of death to the property. But if they go to sell the house, they have to. So oftentimes you get these recent recordings of an affidavit of death that was recorded, let's say April of 2024. You're like, oh, well, this person just died. Let me reach out to the homeowners. No, that person died in 2010. And you're now reaching out to brand new homeowners saying, hey, I heard somebody died, right? It's like the ultimate worst marketing approach that you could have. So be careful. There's a way around that. So if you want to do that, let me know. Neighborhood specialists, investors, life events, demographic farms, not common, but not to be overlooked. So for demographics, how old are they? What is their occupation? What do they do for work? Oftentimes there's programs out there, loan programs for first responders, healthcare workers, things like that. How much money, what's their annual income? Do they have a presence of children in the home? If they're in a 2-bedroom, 1,000 square foot home and there's children in the home and they've been there 5 years, why not leverage that equity to get little Johnny his own bedroom? Right? Thoughts, just different ideas, right? What would I do? If I quit my job today and got into real estate after doing this for 20 years, what would I do? Right? So those are little ideas that I would be experimenting with them. But I would take the things that are proven that I've seen work and I would be doing those too. So lastly, before I open up our farm program, guys, and I know that the folks on the Zoom here might not be able to see this, so I'll just read this off a little bit here. These are just 24 search parameters out of hundreds of search parameters we have to choose from. And I just like to share this because the tools that we use in our customer service department and that I use when I'm doing your farms myself, they're called AND programs, AND. You say, Nick, I want to target West Roseville, and I want it to be homes that were built before 2021. And I want them to be owner occupied. And I want them to be owned free and clear, or a minimum of 50% equity, right? The more ands we put together, the more targeted, specific, and more potential that's developed in your farm, right? So that's the whole idea. Any questions so far, guys? No? Great. I mean, so I'm speaking good English today. Okay, I know that some of you have seen this program. Khaled has seen it. I think Viviana has seen it. Cameron, I know, has seen it. So this is Title Toolbox. And I know the folks on the screen probably can't see it that great, but we're going to do our best here. So We talked about there, in my opinion, there's three different types of farms out there. Kind of just touched on geographic farming, the most common. Right. When I was working in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco area, I would get roughly 75 geographic farm requests a week. Right? I mean, that's a lot. So that's the most common farm, geographic farm. Radius around your listing, the neighborhood where you live, or we can find an area that's hot, that has good 5-year track history, right? And we'll talk about that. Geographic, demographic farming, which we're not going to get into today, and third, life event, which we'll talk about today. So let's talk about geographic farming. Colette, are you still doing any farming? Honest man today, I love it, and yesterday too. Okay, so let's take a look. Somebody give me a city. What city do you want to look at? Rockland. Quick answer there, Rebecca. So we're going to jump into Rockland. Now, if you know the area that you have in mind, great, we can start there, and I'll show you what we do. Let's just jump over here to Rockland. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I don't expect you to learn how to use the system right now. I just want you to know what it's capable of, right? So this is how we qualify a farm. I like to analyze, need to analyze at least about 1,000 homes. I can't analyze 500 homes and give you a good temperature gauge of what's going on in the neighborhood. Doesn't mean your final farm's going to be 1,000, but we got to expand, take a temperature read, then we can hone in on exactly where you want to farm. So I'm going to use this boundary, this polygon tool, and hope that I'm picking up at least 1,000 homes here. Area has no rhyme or reason. I'm just using it for a demo. The screen you see here is where all the magic happens. This is where all the hundreds of search parameters are located. I'm going to get rid of condominiums. It defaults condos. We have single family residents only. How many homes? Give me 1,000. How much? 601. Not even close. I need to spend more time in Rockland. Okay, it's okay. We're going to expand that. That should be close to 1,000. If it's not, we'll still roll with it. Add filters. Okay, so be patient. Here we go. How many homes? Woof, 1,018. Perfect. All right. Second time's the charm today. So again, a lot of title reps will say, hey, Chanel, let's find an area that has good turnover, right? And I hear that all the time. And again, I've been doing this so long, I know exactly what programs they're using. I know what buttons they're clicking, and they're just getting a 12-month snapshot of turnover. And so what we're going to do now for this 1,000 homes, I used to do what you're going to see here. I used to do this by hand. It'd take a half hour to do one. Now it takes less than 30 seconds. So what this system is doing now, it's analyzing 5 years of data. So what we have here, the first thing that I look at, guys, if you can't see it at home, I'll just shout it out for you. There's a column here that shows year built, the oldest home and the newest home. The first thing I look at is there any new construction in that area that's skewing our numbers? That's important. If you're like, wow, this area's on fire, I'm like, yeah, it's because it's all brand new Lennar homes, right? So we want to avoid that. We don't want to market to an area that's all brand new. Small subdivision of 20 homes is okay. So year built is what we look at first. And then we go look at, this is a 12-month snapshot on the left-hand side for the folks at home. It's a 12-month snapshot we're looking at that shows the last 12 months in this area, 2.06. Agents ask me all the time, Nick, what's a good turnover? Prior to this slowdown in 2022, which is this is the slowest market volume-wise we've ever seen in my 20-something years. And I've talked to people who've been doing it since the early 90s. They say this is the slowest we've ever seen it. Right? So prior to the slowdown, I would advise agents, Bay Area, Sacramento, turnovers are the same, believe it or not. It doesn't change when you go from one area to the next. I would always say if the area you're looking at is 4% or less, throw it out. Well, guess what? Almost every area today is now 4% or less. Excuse me. So 2.06, where does that rank in today? What are the averages now? So we've been in a slow market for 2 years now, almost to the day. What is the average now? The average that I'm seeing, and again, it hasn't changed location-wise, no matter where you go, in Northern California for the most part, about 2.5%. So this area, 2.06 on the lower end, not on the really low end, but it's not terrible, but I'd like to find something better. But again, we don't stop there. We're going to scroll up now. And what we're going to see here is 60 months of data. So you can see the last 12 months here is the lower part of these peaks. But what I like about this area, you guys, look at that. Every single month for 60 months straight, with the exception of February and March of this year, there's been a sale. Every single month. That's encouraging to me. That tells me that there's probably going to be sales almost every single month for the next 12 to 24 months in this area, right? But I'll tell you what I don't like. Does anybody see a number on here that I don't like, which would steer me away from Mark? If you're planning on mailing to this area only, there's nothing wrong here. But if you're going to walk this neighborhood, can anybody see something that sticks out to you? Train station. The numbers. Look at the numbers. There we go. Jackpot. So Rebecca said, for the folks at home, she said the non-owner, and there's a little category here that shows you the percentage of rentals. So in this area, more than 20%, 22% are rentals. So 1 in 4, 1 in 5 doors that you go to is going to be a renter there. So if you're canvassing a neighborhood, I would prefer you to go to an area that is less than 20%. In a perfect world, 9, 10%, 12%. I'd say 15% is the average. I've seen above 30% several times. At that point, you just might as well turn it into a buyer farm, right? So this is how we qualify a farm. What would I say to this? If Khaled had, if he said, Nick, this is I want to farm this area, what do you say? I would say, okay, my advice to you, Khaled, is if you have your heart set on farming this area, is to remove anybody who, for your mailers only. Me personally, I'm about cutting costs, right? Not spending money where I don't have to, except for DoorDash, right? Anyways, another conversation. But I would cut out people who just bought a house in the last 2 years. Why am I? Yeah, sure, they might know somebody, but I'd rather free up that mailer, that extra $2 I'm spending on that mailer, whatever it is, for somebody maybe just outside of my farm area that's been there for 20 years. The likeliness of them selling versus somebody who's been there too, come on, much higher, right? So the reason why I would say, okay, Khaled, go ahead and farm this area is because of the 5-year history. There's a lot of transactions to get your hands on consistently in this area. The one thing that this area has is that C word, consistency, right? So as far as the renters go, like I said, I would just adjust my mailers to avoid sending to any renters, and let's hope that one of these renters gets a flyer and wants to buy something, right? Let's just hope. So that's how we qualify. So what now? What do we do? Let's say that this is the farm that you want. Well, we're going to have to reduce that 1,000 to a more manageable number for you if 1,000 is not manageable. Wilson Leung in the Bay Area, the best farmer, Khaled knows who he is, the best guy I've ever seen farm in my life. The guy, I met him about 12 years ago. He was 24 years old, 23 years old, closed like 2 escrows, and I was a self-made millionaire. And last year closed $200 million in real estate, and $100 million of that was in listings. His number one source of business when I was talking to him on the phone, farming. So when people say farming doesn't work, I say, I know a guy that generated close to $100 million in listings last year from farming. So maybe you don't work because farming does it, but if you don't, it won't, right? So what now? What do we do now? Okay, we can go in, get the email addresses. Highly encourage you to do that. $7 for 100. And once you pay for it, you're done. You don't have to pay for postage, anything ever again to contact these folks, unless you mail to them, of course. But I would look at what's going on in this neighborhood in terms of life events. I'd be logging into the system every 45 days, and I have a few clients that I do that as a courtesy. I just calendar myself every 45 days. I'll come in and look for life events that have been detected recently. So in this neighborhood, in the last 12 months, for the folks at home, if you cannot see it on the screen, in this particular neighborhood in Rockland, 1,000 homes, there has been 1 divorce that has been filed, right? You should be going after that homeowner. Absolutely. I mean, me personally, right? I'm a vegetarian now, but I used to be a big fisherman, and I would always have pay for a stamp where you can have 2 rods because I double my chances of catching a fish, right? So if you're farming, why are you only going to have 1 fishing pool? I'd have my geographic farm in the water, then I'd have my smaller rod, and I'd cast it out into a life event farm, right? So we've qualified this area. It looks good. We're gonna fine tune it for you.
So you would just look at the divorce.
I would,
for life events.
so what I would do is okay. So the biggest return on investment that we've seen, and we have a guy that tracks this stuff at Fidelity, is affidavit of death is number 1.
I think you said no.
You got to be careful with that because oftentimes people didn't recently die. They died 10 years ago. So what we would do if you wanted to target affidavit of death recordings is we'd put in a search filter that says omit any properties that have sold in the last 12 months. So we're ensuring that it wasn't the sale of a property that triggered this debt.
You would do 12 months.
I would omit any purchases. So let's say we do any debts in the last 12 months. Well, I'm going to omit any sales of the home in the last 12 months just to ensure it wasn't a sale that triggered the recording of the affidavit of death. We want to be sure that somebody recently passed here. And it takes time with the affidavit of death. People are grieving. Siblings are arguing about what they're going to do with the house or the belongings. There's a whole lot of stuff going on if anybody's ever, been through something like that. So the last thing sometimes people are thinking about is selling the house next month, right? It's going to take 6 months, 12 months, maybe longer. So don't give up on these folks when you don't hear from them in 90 days, right? And it's not like there's going to be 500. It's going to be a small, manageable number to where you can hopefully keep up with it. But to answer your question, Cameron, I would do a separate specific farm just for divorces, right? Let's go into Placer County. Okay, we have Placer County. We'll do the whole county. We'll keep condos in there. In fact, would anybody take a duplex listing in here? All right, let's throw duplexes in there too, right? Okay, SFR, condo, duplex. Go to Premier Data because unfortunately divorce leads in the state of California, we, the title insurance company, cannot provide for free. How much does it cost? 50 cents for a divorce lead. What does that include? Who they are, where they live, when they filed the divorce, who petitioned the divorce. Why is that important? If Mike and Mary are getting a divorce, Mike's still madly in love and wants to make it work. Mary petitioned the divorce. Mike doesn't want to sell the house. Mary does, right? That's how I would use that. In Placer County, it changes from county to county. Placer County, they will tell you if there's children involved in the divorce. Why is that important? Anybody?
School districts?
Jack, you're on point today, Rebecca. I wish I had a prize for you here. Bottle of Casadores down here. It's my favorite, actually, Cameron. Good job. Good job. So Rebecca said school districts, right? So I know when my parents divorced, I was 7, 8 years old. My mom wanted to keep us in the home because we were already going through so much, a divorce. She wanted to keep us in the home and keep us in the school district because she didn't want to sever those friendships with the friends we've made, right? That's a whole nother layer of going through something. So if you're contacting these homeowners who are going through divorce, they say, Rebecca, thank you so much, but we're not going to sell because we want to keep our kids in the same school. So be prepared for that objection with, hey, you know what? I was anticipating that might be a concern. So what I did is I went ahead and prepared a list of homes for sale or coming soon that are within the same school district. That way, if you want to give you and your kids, a fresh set of 4 walls to create some new memories, might be better for them. And they don't have to leave the school, right? So be prepared for those objections, right? So, okay, where are we at? We are in Placer County. We have divorces. Anybody know how long a divorce takes minimum by law? Jackpot, 6 months. We got a sharp crew today. I'm still waiting for Khaled, man. I know Khaled's a smart guy. We're saving the best for last, huh? Okay, a divorce takes a minimum of 6 months. Oftentimes it can take years, right? So we're just going to go back to last 6 months. Anybody want to take a guess in Placer County? I'll start just because I've seen these. I know that Sacramento County last time I checked was like 450 in the last 6 months. I'm going to say 278. Anybody else in Placer? 378. $1, Bob. 300. We got 378, 300, 278. Viviana, what's your number, girl? You run away with the kiddos? Okay, we're going to roll with it. Get count. How many in Placer County? SFR, condo, duplex, 210. People are going back to church. Kidding. So that would cost you $105. I would absolutely spend the extra $15 to get the email addresses, right? Out of 210, the system will probably find 120 email addresses. They're divorce leads. I'd pull the phone numbers too. And people ask me, Nick, what do I say to these people? You don't say, congratulations, here's a Match.com subscription, right? I don't think that's the right approach. But I also think that being too, what's the word I'm looking for? Being too passive is a big mistake too. Like, I accidentally sent you a postcard. I hope you call. No, you have to be somewhat direct, but being indirect at the same time.
Do you acknowledge the type of that?
So great question. So what I would do is I would send them a letter, short and sweet, right? If I get a letter like that, I'm not reading it.
Oh, yeah.
I get a letter like that, I have the time.
Letter or email?
Yeah, letter, both. right? We have different forms of contact, right? I would say, I would introduce myself. Hi, I'm Nicholas Ellsworth, local real estate expert in Placer County here, and I specialize in transitional real estate. Whether you've lost a loved one, you got a baby on the way, recently married, or going through divorce, I specialize in transitional real estate, and it's come to my attention that you yourself may be going through a transition. Now you haven't said, I heard you're getting a divorce. You've listed their situation among many others, so they don't feel so singled out and targeted. That's just my opinion. This is how I would do it. And I would say it's come to my attention that they know that maybe going through a transition, and I would be grateful for the opportunity to audition, non-committal, audition my services for your household to see if they would be of value for you. And if right now is not the right time, please hold on to my contact information and reach out to me when it is the right time. Right? So that would be my approach. But I would continue contacting them. I wouldn't keep calling them, but I'd send them little emails, valuable information, right? If let's say they're divorced and they're 60, they're getting a divorce and they're 60. Do they know about Proposition 19, right? There's always some angle, somewhere to deliver value, to be of value, to be an asset to these folks. So that's the way that I would approach it. And again, I would come in here and I would get their phones and their email addresses. But that would be my small fishing pool. You don't have to do all 210 in Placer County, right? But that's the route that I would go. Any questions on the divorces, the life events? All right, just keep in mind that the life events change from county to county. Like I know Viviana, you're out in Woodland still, right, Vivi? No? Did she? Oh, she moved to Roseville, huh? That's right. Hey, she was in Woodland. So speaking of Woodland, Yolo County, right? Davis, Woodland, West Sacramento. Yolo County doesn't report their divorces. So I have these agents in Davis that I show them the system. They're like, wow, okay, let's find some divorces in Davis. I go, sorry, you're the one person that we can't help with this, right? So Sacramento does, El Dorado, Solano, Placer, all reported. So guys, this system does so much more. I just showed you the basic general approach so far. How do we select a farm? How do we find a farm? How do we qualify it? Now, I'll wrap up with this. What if you don't know where you want to farm? You're like, I just have Nick, I have no idea. Pick an area for me, right? I thought I knew everything about farming until I spoke with our Elk Grove rep last year. Really cool guy named Mitch. About ready to retire, actually. Dude looks younger than me, and he's like 67. I'm like, man, like, how do you get those genetics? And that's anyway, that dark skin. So statistics. This system has a statistics tab. And again, Mitch and Elk Grove, our rep, taught this to me. And what we're going to do now is we're going to tell the system, hey, Title Toolbox, Fidelity Farming, we want you to show us where the fastest moving subdivisions are right now. In the last 12 months, I want you to take every neighborhood in Roseville, and I want you to rank it from the most transactions to the least. Now, you got to be careful because there's a lot of new construction in Roseville. Sun City's always, and I'm not being funny here, Sun City's always at the top of the list because a lot of turnover, and it's elderly folks, part of life, right? So I always see Sun City showing up. But what city do we want to try? David, what city do we want to look at? Lincoln, I like it. Okay, so we're going to go to Placer County. David said, I heard that, that's pretty funny. David said, Lincoln, we're going to get rid of condos. So now what we're going to do, we told the system where, and now we're going to tell the system how. How do you want me to divide up Lincoln? Right, here's our options. The best way is census tract, but the system always gives me an error message, and I've told the vendor a million times, like, it doesn't work. So we're going to go by carrier route. We're going to tell the system, hey, break up the neighborhoods by the mail carrier route, the postal route that the mailman or woman follows to deliver your mail. Why that? Because it tends to keep the homes in the same geographical pockets. We're not jumping over the freeway, right? Most of the time. Okay, let's say search. The system's going to tell us how many carrier routes there are in Lincoln. Drum roll. 33. Hey, that's my favorite number. Play it on roulette all the time. Not all the time. I'm not like some avid gambler, but anytime I'm in front of a roulette table. Okay.
You go to Lincoln often.
Yeah, the Thunder Valley. I was last time I was in a casino was Niagara Falls. I had no idea. They're like on the Canada side. They have all these casinos. Anyway, did well too. Walked out with money over a 3-day period. That's a winner. The people that don't gamble, I know guys that recently, somebody was saying, I don't gamble. I'm like, you're already a winner then. You just won, right? Okay, let's get focused here. So we've told the system to break down 33 carrier routes in Lincoln, and it automatically has ranked them by turnover in the last 12 months. And there's a heat map over here. When I hover over one, it'll show you where the neighborhood is. But 9.06, when I see 9% turnover last 12 months, that tells me what? Jackpot. We got a sharp group today. That's new construction. And you can see it over here, average years owned, 8.9, 5.9. Then you get into these areas that are not so much new construction, 13 years, 15 years, 17 years. Here's a 4.8. That tells me it's most likely new construction, 4.8 years, average years owned. So this is how we find the fastest moving subdivisions. But remember, we don't stop here. On the surface, it looks good. And this is when I tell those stories. I was meeting with an agent when I tell you those stories where on the surface, it looks good. We look back 60 months and we find multiple 4-month windows with 0 sales. I can't afford, you guys can't afford, we can't afford to have you guys go over there and spend dollars and time and not have anything. You can't fight over 0, right? Okay, so let's take a look at number 3 on the list. Number of homes, 806. Our turnover, 6.95. I'm still guessing there might be some new construction there because that's a really high turnover. Here's our non-owner occupied, 13% of renters. That's ideal. That's perfect. So let's see what's going on in area 3. Do you guys see where it's located? The folks here in the office. There's number 3. So where is that? It's off of Del Webb and East Joyner.
Older people.
Oh, is it a 55 community?
It's like Sun City. Don't
It's
want.
55, not even old, but is it a Sun City?
Yeah.
That would be why the turnover is very high there, right? So we talked about areas of Sun City being high turnover. So what's the next one? I'm going to get away from these 5s. I'm going to go into the 4s. If I can find something that's a legit, no new construction, 4.5% turnover in this market, that's outstanding. So here we go. 4.53. Average years owned is 12.5. As a 4.53 and 772 homes. Let's look at it. We're going to wrap up with this, guys. And we're going to make sure that it wasn't just the last 12 months that looked good. We want to make sure that it was the last 5 years, right? So again, I like to analyze 1,000 homes. We're going to analyze 772. So there might be a few more gaps. That's acceptable just because we don't have as many homes that we're analyzing. That turnover should say 4.53, right? The 12-month. I'm going to look up here at new construction too when this thing loads. Somebody streaming something here. I'm kidding here. Here we go. Okay, 4.53. Year built. The newest home was 2003. We are in business, folks. Non-owner occupied, less than 13%. The last, again, there's going to be a few gaps, not many. Considering we're 300 under the number I like to analyze, this area is outstanding. I would be
There you go.
I would be farming this area.
My house was built in 2003. They're Beezer
Me too.
homes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
James
I think that's a sign. Okay. Excuse me. So now what? Let's look at the life events. So what we're going to do, if we finalize this farm for you, we're going to find what that manageable number is. You say, Nick, I can take on half of it. I can take on, let's say, 400. I can take 400. Which 400 should I target? What we would do is we split the area down the middle, or we'd probably put in a search parameter that say, hey, show us where the sales took place in the last 12 months. It'll plot them on a map so we can say, okay, most of them were taking place on the west side. Most of the time, it is one little pocket that happens to be the sweet spot. So we try to find that. And then we look at life events. 19 affidavit of deaths recorded. I'm guessing a lot of those were triggered from recent sales because there's been a lot of sales in this area. 14 cash buyers. What would you do with that information? I would contact them because maybe they have more cash. Maybe they were a realtor they were not pleased with the last time. Oftentimes, what's this? The statistic was staggering when I heard the number of people that don't use the same realtor twice in a row. It blew me away. Yeah. So when people say, oh, well, they already have a realtor, I'm like, well, that's a terrible sales attitude. Like they might not, I pick up real estate business, new escrows, because an escrow officer made a terrible mistake. It happens. Happens on, unfortunately, sometimes it happens, everybody's human. It happens on both sides, but don't count yourself out just because you might think somebody already has a realtor. One notice of default. One person in this neighborhood is falling behind on their payments. That's where you come in. And the best approaches I've seen to people who are underwater and default, notice of trustee sale, things like that, is there's a local realtor here who specializes in that. And I love his approach. I can't quote exactly what he does, but he basically goes in with, hey, you don't have to sell. I'm not here to like force you in to sell your house. Here are all the options. He has a list. Here are all the options that you have, whether it be to sell, whether it be to refinance, whatever the solution is. He doesn't just have selling your home as the only solution. He goes in as a legitimate, sincere resource for these folks. So I would also be targeting notices of default. I wouldn't be over the top on them, but I'd have my finger on the pulse, right? So that's how we find, if you're not sure where to start, that statistics tab, doing the carrier routes, ranking them in the entire city. That's how we find the fastest moving subdivisions. And we have to look at the last 5 years to make sure that it's not just a fluke, that it wasn't just a one-off, 1 year had a good year, right? And this particular area, it looks like every year is a pretty damn good year. So guys, we're about an hour in now, and I get tired of hearing my own voice, especially when I'm yelling at my dogs. But if you guys want to get together, put together a farm, learn more, pick my brain, like I said, this is my life's work, and I don't get paid unless you do. I don't want to just come up here with ideas that sound good. I work for you. That's my job. So utilize me, use me as a resource. I'm not sure if you can see my contact information up there. But for the folks who are at home, my email is nick.ellsworth, ELLSWORTH @FNF.com. That stands for Fidelity National Financial. nick.ellsworth@FNF.com. My cell phone is a 916. And for the folks here, I'm going to give you a business card. My cell phone is a 916-342-7504. Send me a text message. It's the fastest way to get a response from me. You can call me. I'm not going to go, I told you not to call. No, you can call me if you want. Schedule a one-on-one appointment with me. Like I said, even Tom Ferry, the top real estate coach in the nation right now, he's saying to the agents, I've seen it firsthand this year, he's like, you need to front load your marketing now, because this market will come back, and it will come back strong. There's going to be a strong market before too long. It's just a matter of time. So don't be the one who didn't put in the work. Right? It's, when did Noah build the ark? Before the rain, right? Not in the middle of the storm. So that's it, guys. I hope to hear from you. Like I said, use me as a resource, and hopefully we'll see you guys in escrow. All right. Thanks for having me, Cameron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you bet, guys.
Hey, Nick, I do have a question.
Yes, please.
So if we're new to a farm, and let's say we don't have a listing, do you have some suggestions for